Harrison Price for Thursday, October 17th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic historic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. And if you've got your ticket to the big game, why not make it a full experience? Stay downtown here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Harrison Price rate. Yeah, it's back. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. Matt Sakaris alongside Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things. Got a big show planned for you as we get set for the Vancouver Canucks and Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers from South Florida, with the Canucks still searching for their first win of the season. More on that in a moment. Start with our poll question today. Is tonight the night Elias Pettersson bumps the slump? Yes or no? You can vote at the Harrison Price X and YouTube channels. What says you, Blake Price?
Well, I mean, this is a pretty good opportunity. Non-conference games traditionally are a little less intense affairs because you don't mind giving points back to the other team. It's a subconscious thing more than anything else. But
especially in October.
So this should be about as loose a game as you can get in this particular matchup. You delete two superstars from the lineup for the Florida Panthers, and maybe that's even more the case. Although maybe the idea would be that Paul Maurice has to ask everybody to clamp down because the superstars aren't there to make a difference. But hey, it's the NHL. There are no easy nights, but this is an opportunity. I'll say that.
This sets up for him. And look, the fretting about number 40 continues in this market. People have now gone back and done the math, read the Athletic piece. He has gone 34 games without an even strength goal. Yes, that includes the Stanley Cup playoffs where he had just the one goal. It was a power play marker in game 2 against Edmonton. So 34 games, which is damn near half an NHL regular season, with one even strength goal. He's gone 8 total games without a goal. You got to go back to game 2 of the second round series against Edmonton to find his last goal. And he has just one goal since signing his new deal on March 3rd.
You know, there's a lot of tired tropes when it comes to criticizing star players. One of them is, as soon as they get fat and happy, they put their feet up and coast.
Except the evidence does not show a lot of those examples.
No.
More on that in a moment.
No, it doesn't. And that trope has always bothered me because, no, if anything, you could argue that if there is an effect at all from signing the contract, it is the pressure of having made that money that is the emotion more than I'm going to put my feet up because I've got the money.
Point production usually maintains or increases after one of these deals.
And he was already showing signs of this in the few games before this deal was signed anyhow.
Well, a month or so before, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was early March. So it was the entire month of February.
I think it was like 6 weeks of not
pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
So I don't think that has any bearing on it, but it's just not a good thing to have on your brochure. Not in
the least.
It doesn't look good.
Noah Strang in the Daily Hive notes that he has scored in 3 consecutive games against the Florida Panthers. He had 3 points in the 2 games they played last year. And he's got 5 points in his last 3 games against the Florida Panthers, to underline your point. And, you know, speaking of signing the big long-term deal or just arriving at this stage in your career, a good article on The Athletic today. I believe it was Dranson Harmon, but I stand to be corrected there. So they went back and did the math, and they looked at players who had been able to sustain a point per game production over 400 games in the National Hockey League.
Okay.
And Elias is right there. 400 games, 400 points.
Mm-hmm.
I think they found 19 examples and it's a who's who of the NHL and guys who went on to be Hall of Famers or near Hall of Famers. So the conclusion was, look, players who have showed this much through their first 400 games in the NHL, they don't suddenly become mediocre. Then they went and they expanded the search and brought it down to players who were 0.8 or 0.9 points per game. So got a bigger sample size there.
Mm-hmm.
And the only player they can find who fell off the table was Alexander Semin. You remember him?
Yes.
He only crested 50 points once after age 26. He had 354 points in 392 games previously. But as they note, that was a one-dimensional winger who was also playing with those Boudreaux Washington teams.
That's right.
Not a two-way center like Elias Pettersson. So everything points to an Elias Pettersson bounce back at some point. Blake, I voted yes on the poll question, in part because no Sasha Barkov, no Matthew Tkachuk tonight for the Florida Panthers. The matchup should be a whole heck of a lot easier, particularly Barkov, right? And that's maybe the best defensive forward in the game. And in fact, maybe may not be required in that sense. That's the best defensive forward in the game. So I voted yes. I think you'll get more favorable matchups tonight. I think, as you point out, that October hockey with the team in the other conference tends to be a little looser, a little more open. And frankly, it's just damn time. You?
Yeah, I think it is time. But
You voted yes?
I voted yes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, it's you're not going to get many better. And hey, it's at his feet. Like it's not just about these surrounding factors. It's on the player. The player has to figure this out. But I mean, personal pride comes into it here, determination, and we've seen him come early to practice, stay late. Like he is putting in some work here. You hope, and again, I saw brief flashes in the last game. You hope that was an indicator again, I can do this. I can get the separation, the time and space that I need to do my thing.
The public is not as bullish on it, though. I'm looking at our poll, more than 600 votes in. It's running 49. It's running 51, 49. No.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 prospect right
now.
No,
the market's just down on the player. That much is clear. And so now, I was thinking about this a lot yesterday. Now, it becomes a matter of, does Elias hear the noise and how much does it affect him?
Mm-hmm.
Canucks did a sly little maneuver today on the media relations side, and more on this with Patrick Johnston later in the program about Elias and what he hears and the effect. They made Pettersson available to their in-house reporter.
This is after practice.
This is after practice. Yeah. So gives them the ability to say, oh, he's spoken recently. I am going to be most interested the next time Elias does a scrum, and let's face it, it'll probably have to be back here in Vancouver because news outlets just don't travel anymore. You pretty much get the in-house team reporter, you get the broadcasters doing the game, on not always even that.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get the larger media core that covers the team, the J Pats of the world, the Patrick Johnstons of the world. So I'm going to be most interested to see the next time Elias does a scrum here in Vancouver, and particularly if he's still struggling or at least not producing to everybody's expectations. What's the attitude going to be like? What's the body language going to be like? Are they going to be snap, curt answers? Is he going to show disdain for the exercise? And I say all of that because one of the things that Tocchet has harped on is body language, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Elias suffers from a case of poor body language when things aren't going his way. And look, it is really hard, and I'm sure exceedingly difficult when you're a competitor of that order, when you have expectations of yourself that are extremely high. People have called him a perfectionist in the past. To maintain a good, positive attitude and body language when things aren't going your way, particularly when you're not like a big outgoing personality. And we know that Elias is not necessarily a big outgoing personality, right? So, he's not a gregarious guy at the best of times. And at the worst of times, you see it written all over him. The head drops, the shoulders slump. And I think that's one of the many things that Tocchet and the team is working with him on, or hoping to work with him on, in order to see improvement, not just for him, but for the betterment of those he's around. My question is, how cooperative does he want to be with all of that? Because this is now getting to the point stretching over 2 seasons. And I said yesterday, I absolutely want to give him a clean slate here. Alas, some of the evidence suggests it's just a continuation.
I mean, I'll bring up the Twins because maybe it's a cultural thing too. Maybe it's
that's fair.
Maybe it's the pressure of
I covered Daniel Sedin and Matt Sundin, or Daniel Alfredson and Matt Sundin, and there was some similarities there. With
the Twins didn't look like they were having fun until they were probably 26. It wasn't until they were certified superstars, which is already accomplished for Elias Pettersson, I think. But we didn't see and they never got uber demonstrative, but they started to celebrate goals a lot more as they became amongst the league leaders in points. Who knows what the genesis of that. But if that is part of it, I mean, sports psychologists are commonplace now in professional sports teams. So I would hope that that's been made available. And if that is the issue for EP40, then I hope that I hope he's taking advantage of that.
Modern NHL franchises, sports franchises have a lot of tools at your disposal.
Oh yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned the Sedin celebrating goals, and I heard Green Day's Holiday.
Yes, that was part of it. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
How many times did you see, Danny receiving Hank or Hank receiving Danny to the opening chords of Holiday?
But they got accused of being automatons early in their career as well. They were rather emotionless as well. And again, who knows if that's pressure, if that's being young and in a foreign country, who knows? But
when I was in Toronto, Sundin used to get quite down on himself. Yeah, like he was like the own worst critic thing. That was very much a thing with Mats. And look, I bring those names up because also the pressure of Canadian markets, right? Like it's just a little bit different in Columbus and elsewhere. Okay, let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Yellow Dog Spirits, and Foolish Winery. And then there were four winless teams in the National Hockey League. A week and a couple of days into it now. The Vancouver Canucks are one of them at 0-2, same record as the San Jose Sharks. The Nashville Predators are 0-3. The Colorado Avalanche are 0-4. 3 of those 4 teams are in action today. Vancouver at Florida. The Predators host Edmonton. And San Jose is at Chicago. So the good news for the Canucks is if they weren't able to beat the Panthers tonight, they'll still have company in the winless club tomorrow. Colorado is idle. Alas, they would have to sweat through San Jose at Winnipeg tomorrow and Anaheim at Colorado tomorrow. So if they lose tonight, there is a very real possibility they would go into Saturday in Philadelphia as the only winless club in the National Hockey League.
They're the points leaders right now. They're the king of the losers, though, right now. Is that correct?
Yes, they have 2 points. Well, they're tied with San Jose, who also has a couple of loser points through 3 games.
But they're also through 3 games.
Mm-hmm. San Jose is 0-1-2.
So points per
Canucks
game is
are
the same
0-1-2.
too. All right. Well, they're tied for.
You're looking for the tiebreaker.
Yeah,
here?
exactly. Yeah, goals for maybe.
Is that for draft lottery odds purposes?
It's not again.
James Hagen's going to be a Canuck next year.
This is sort of like the Elias Pettersson stat that we tried out earlier. Like it probably means nothing. It probably does, but it's not something that you want to start the season with. It's just not. And it's immediately nipped in the bud with a win tonight. If you win tonight, guess what? You don't even have a losing record in the National Hockey League anymore.
No.
You're 1-1-2.
Yep.
You're basically like the season has started over for you if you win tonight. I mean,
50% of the available points isn't good.
No.
That's an 80-point pace, and that's not good enough. And then that's 82-point pace, and that's not good enough to make the playoffs in the modern NHL.
But if you're 500 anytime before November the 10th, I'm picking arbitrarily, but, first 5 weeks of the season, you're not in trouble. You got lots of time to build up to 10, 15 games above 500. Lots of time.
It's the second time you've done that this week. Just throw out a date or a total arbitrarily, as you say.
Well, that's just
calling it arbitrary, make it okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Come on. It's been a couple of years since Yellow Dogs brought this puppy out.
I see what you did there, puppy.
You like that?
Very good.
Welcome back to the A Paw smoked porter. In my older age, I'm starting to ditch the IPAs and the stuff. I'm starting to get back to the big flavor stuff.
It's been quite a transformation in my years working alongside Blake. Because there was a time where he didn't drink much beer at all.
There's a lot of red wine.
A lot of red wine going down.
Now I barely drink wine anymore.
And usually California and BC, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then he got back into beer, but he didn't just get back into, your more popular IPAs, lagers, pilsners, things like that. Gosas.
Yeah, like Gosas.
And porters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Each their own.
This one,
Yellow Dog neighborhood has something for everybody.
It's a well-balanced porter. Gives you a hint of rich chocolate and coffee flavors. Now you understand why I like it, with an underlying subtle smokiness. Enjoyed with friends and canines alike. Don't give it to the canines.
No, I wouldn't.
Enjoy it with them.
I wouldn't. Has that ever happened to you?
What's that?
Where alcohol is spilled or
worse
than the dog is?
I think it needs to be a lot, though. Like, not a lot, but I mean,
it depends how big the dog is. I mean, your little Chihuahua, I'm thinking a few licks, and that's that.
She's eating worse, I assure you.
Yeah. Here's the other thing that I sense, because we were going to ask a poll question on this today and decided against it. I feel people are very harsh on Elias right now, very impatient with Elias, and you can argue rightfully so. I don't necessarily feel the fan base is all that worried about this start. I think there is still a conviction amongst Canucks fans that we've got a good team. They will figure it out. I am not sweating this start. Now, the equation could completely change today, and particularly given who Florida is playing without. I mean, it is hard enough to win in the National Hockey League at any time, but minus two players, the quality of Barkov and Tkachuk, that is a much different equation. And look, as we know, sometimes teams, when they're without star players, everybody snaps to attention, plays to their detail better, and you get a fuller, more complete team effort of some of the parts.
Well,
but I don't sense Canuck Nation is panicking yet. I wonder where that thermometer is if they lose this one, and it's 0-2-2.
They are in a comfortable position regardless, and here's why. Games that are played at 4 o'clock Pacific time go a lot more unnoticed.
They sure do.
The casual fan saw them go to overtime and have, I say thrilling, not because they won, but, edge of your seat drama right to the 60-odd minute in both of their home games to start the season, which got seen by the masses.
Of course.
Many would have missed the Tampa loss entirely. And they'll play 3 more of these early games, and I'll include next Tuesday's 5:15 Pacific start because, again, a lot of people are in the commutes home or not even left the office yet. The spotlight.
I was first period on the radio Tuesday too.
The spotlight gets a lot brighter when they return home on October the 26th. They've been given some grace here, but you don't want to use up too much of it. Right. If the fans tune back in a week's time and go, holy crap, they're 0-4-2. Like what? That's not going to be great. So they'd be best served to get a couple of wins here on this road trip, but they are getting away with it for the time being, I think.
Eric Brannstrom makes his Vancouver Canucks debut this afternoon. Derek Forbert has left the team for personal reasons. So Brannstrom, the left shot, is the last left shot available on defense minus Forbert. So he's going to circle in. Went out, well, first from Noah Strang of the Daily Hive again, and follow Noah, he does terrific content, pointing to the Canucks' problems in transporting the puck with these bottom two pairs, Susie Myers, and then the third pair, Forbert Juleson or Forbert Desharnais, as they went in game one. Without Hughes or Hronek on the ice, even strength, 19.8 shots per 60, last in the NHL, 1.52 expected goals for per 60, last in the NHL, 2 goals for, 6 goals against. As Noah says, they're creating virtually nothing going forward. Brannstrom should help here. Would follow that up with Carson Soucy, who was outshot. We talked about how the Pettersson line was buried in the Tampa game.
Susie Myers was, yeah.
Soucy was outshot 12-1 at evens. He's been outshot 26-9 on the season, outscored 3-1. So Soucy has really struggled here in the early going.
Unless you're a third pairing that is out there for 12 minutes a night. And even then to some degree, I mean, we've redefined what defense means in the National Hockey League. You are a conduit. You are the connective tissue from your own net to the opposition net. So it's not just, people get bogged down in the word defend. It's not just about defending. It is about connecting to the forwards and allowing them to attack. So it's a big thing. You're not going to get a second Quinn Hughes. That's not happening. But a reasonable facsimile, the diet version, if you will, Hughes 0. Maybe they can get that in an Eric Brannstrom. Maybe that's a possibility.
Well, here's the thing. Eric Brannstrom last year was the second best Ottawa Senators defenseman in zone exits. Now, he played sheltered minutes. Context matters. But the only guy better than him was Jake Sanderson. He was better than Chychrun and Shabbat in breaking the puck out last year for the Ottawa Senators, where if you're just catching up on Eric Brannstrom, who was officially recalled today, Irf Gaffar broke that news yesterday that he would be. And, of course, Irf and Jeff will have the post-game today on Rick Wide Vancouver. But, I mean, those are pretty good defensemen. And he was better at this one act than they were. Reached out to some friends who watched him in our nation's capital, where he was an every night defenseman for the last couple of years, an NHL regular. If you're just catching up on Brannstrom, he had a shitty camp with the Colorado Avalanche and was on the verge of being waived and made it through waivers with the Canucks. But this is a guy who has played a regular shift for 2 straight years now. So reach out to our friend who's watched him over the last couple of years. And there was a lot of positive reviews. Said he was a gamer, that he's not shy at all. Occasionally skates himself into bad positions and takes some hellacious hits because of it. And there is a concussion history there. He's more agile than he is fast. Like, he'll get caught by forecheckers trying to skate it out. But he's got some shake and shimmy to him. He's a good passer when he has time, especially the stretch pass that Tocchet is trying to institute to create more rush chances. Got the review that sometimes he relies too much or gets himself onto his backhand more often than you'd like. And, of course, he is a left shot who has played the right side some. And, my friend in Ottawa was very... bullish might be too strong a word, but he said he needed a fresh start. He had gotten beaten down here by his general manager calling him the centerpiece to the Mark Stone deal, and forever had to live up to being the centerpiece in a trade for one of the NHL's great two-way wingers, and, of course, a guy who helped Vegas win a Stanley Cup.
He also had to live down the expectation of what he would become at the NHL level. At the Swedish junior level, less so at the SHL, but in the AHL even. He was a near point per game defenseman. He is not that in the NHL at all. And once you come to grips with that, and if you listen, go back and listen to what Matt just said about that scouting report. And I'm not saying he's this player, but you described this player exactly the same way as Matt just described Chris Tanev. Right down to the concussions, right down to the put himself into a position to get stapled, which is what Chris Tanev did at this exact same age with the Vancouver Canucks. And so, again, if you reduce your expectation to a puck-moving defenseman that is smart and plays within themselves,
Wow.
then...
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he has the defensive prowess acumen of Tanev.
No.
Nor the shot blocking. But, yeah, some of that. And, of course, we used to call Chris Gumby, right?
Well, because he gets stapled and get back up.
Like, Tanev in his early games in the NHL would just take some thunderous hits.
And before he became
and we'd
injury
sit there and
riddled,
look at him because he looked like we'd see him in the room. He was such a skinny kid back then. And you just go, oh, my God, the kid probably just had every rib broken.
He used up all of his 9 lives early to the point where then he became injury riddled.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And he's
true.
seemingly gained those 9 lives
true.
back.
But
recently.
Chris had a real calmness about him. Like, one of the things you love about the young defensemen when they come up, it is a harried position. You are under stress and duress, and there is physical consequences for you if you're hanging on to that puck a little too much or skated into a bad area. But the one thing about Tanev was he was so calm. What was BX's great line? He went in the corner with a lit cigarette, came out and the cigarette was lit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just had such a presence, a calmness about him. We'll see about Brannstrom.
Again, don't expect Chris Tanev right up from the bat, but if you reduce the expectation, he's not the 4-goal and 5-game World Junior player anymore. He's not the 0.8 points per game AHL player anymore. No. But if you look as a puck transporter,
right,
you might be pleased.
He's trying to carve out a National Hockey League career where he's a puck transporter, where whatever points come, and there's probably not going to be a ton because he's going to play third pair minutes. He's probably not going to play with the most offensively inclined forwards.
No power play too.
Second power play unit, if at all.
Yeah.
Honestly, to some degree, Justin Schultz. I can remember
he was a little more
Justin
electric.
Schultz from Kelowna, who's still out awaiting to pick a spot to sign with. But the younger Justin Schultz, who was this really coveted college free agent, right shot defenseman with offensive ability. And I can remember talking to Dallas Aikens about him years ago when Dallas had him in Edmonton. And he said, he's the type of guy who helps our offense without getting on the score sheet a whole lot because of his puck transporting.
Right.
That he would make a play in his defensive zone. Whether it was corralling a puck, outlet pass, it would touch a couple other sticks. And so he doesn't get credit for a point, but he's instrumental in developing the play. Yeah, yes. Developing the play. Mm. Jake Ottinger, the goaltender in Dallas, has signed an extension at 8 years and $8.25 million per. It is similar to the extension that Linus Ullmark just signed in Ottawa, and of course Jeremy Swayman signed in Boston. I saw J-Pat tweet that Thatcher Demko would be in line for something like this, of course, if he gets back healthy and has, another good season. I would quibble with my honorable colleague on a couple of things. Number one, I think Demko's best is better than Ottinger's best, better than Ullmark's best, although I know Ullmark won a Vesna with extraordinary numbers a couple of years ago, but I think Demko would have looked pretty darn good on that team as well. And Swayman's best as well. The second thing I wonder about is Igor Shesterkin, I think, is going to reset the goaltender market here, not before long. I mean, we talked to Lawrence Gilman about this yesterday. The report is that Shesterkin has already turned down $11 million a year from the New York Rangers. 8 by 88, if you can believe that.
Trade him. Don't do it.
Well, but what Shesterkin and Gilman mentioned this yesterday, he's the best player on the New York Rangers. He's a reason why you're a primary reason why you're vying for the top of the league standings. They won the President's Trophy last year. Did they win it?
End up pulling it out? Yeah, they might have.
So, and we'll see how many games Demko winds up playing here. And of course, I think if you're the Vancouver Canucks, and Demko's eligible for an extension this July 1st, everybody, he's got one more year on his deal at $5 million after this one. I'm sure Demko will argue Vezina Trophy finalists played on a great contract for you at $5 million for a number of years, and that he's a little more comparable to Shesterkin than he is to Ottinger, Ullmark, and Swayman. And I think the Canucks will counter, well, okay, but you've missed games in each and every year. Thatcher Demko, either way, is going to be really expensive.
Yes.
And I do wonder, I haven't put a lot of thought into this just because it is 2 more years under club control, but are they going to wait on him like they're waiting on Besser?
Well, the power dynamics can be very interesting. The games played column is going to play a big role in the Vancouver Canucks' willingness to saddle up. And it could be both for and against. If he comes back and plays only 35 games this year, but he plays really well for 35 games, they might want to sign him immediately, knowing they can dangle the 35 games, say you've been damaged goods, but want to get him locked up because he showed really well still. If he plays 35 games and they're not great, he's got the injury as an excuse. But if you're the Vancouver Canucks, you're beginning to worry here about how much these injuries are playing with his future performance. So you might want to wait there. So I could see the games played column is a big factor here for the Vancouver Canucks, depending on how well he plays in that diminished capacity. If he ends up playing 50 games still, I don't think it matters.
Here's what I will say, Blake. The longer he's out and the longer that we go about talking about a winless Vancouver club or a mediocre Vancouver club,
he's making some money.
Absence,
yeah. But the good news is
the other thing is here, of course, Ottinger is signing that deal in Texas where he's not paying state income tax. Now, Ullmark is, Swayman is, but as we know, that 8.25 doesn't go as far in British Columbia as it does.
If you watch any of those Texas home shows, my God.
Yeah. Although the exchange rate works in your favor these days, I will say that.
Yes.
Of course, this is all in U.S. dollars.
He is making money theoretically right now, but the good news is the Canucks can't do anything with that. They can't sign him right now. So they still get to see him play.
Well, but that's it. Is my point is they have zero control of where the goaltender market is going here with yet another massive domino to drop in Shesterkin before they get a chance to even negotiate here.
Right. But at the same time,
with the cap going up, with the goaltender market reset, I'm looking at 8.25 for these 3 guys and going, I'm going to bet that Demko asks for and gets more than that. If in fact there is a willingness to re-sign him this summer. And if not, then you've got another full year of seeing where the goaltender market goes with yet another, I suspect, cap jump of significant money.
But a trophy caliber goalie for $8.5 million doesn't scare me. Like that seems appropriate in the market.
Now, some would argue that, and Bobrovsky really was the outlier, changed the narrative here, is that, the incredibly highly paid goaltender has not come through with the cup.
Right.
Bobrovsky.
But the cap's up.
And then there's others who argue that, goaltending isn't quite as important as it used to be, given the volatility of the position year to year, how much of it is reliant on team defense, with shooting percentages going up around the league, and that, the high-end forwards who can score goals at a much higher rate than what their replacements would is where to park your money.
But the percentage, again, you got to look at cap percentage. $8.5 million in 18 months' time for Thatcher Demko is probably not changing his cap percentage that much. Like the cap will have gone up $20 million from the time that Sergei Bobrovsky signed that deal. So all of a sudden, what Bobrovsky's making, the percentage has come way, way down. And I think that's the biggest thing to consider here. Inflation is the thing right now in the NHL, with the cap jumping up by $4 or $5 million per season. So, again, $8.5–9 million in 18 months' time, probably not the end of the world.
Lastly, Blake Price, I wanted to bring this story to your attention because we talked with John Shannon the other day about Monday Night Hockey on Amazon Prime making its debut. And John told us, look, when the next Canadian national television rights package is up, and 1 year from now, we will talk about all of that because Sportsnet will be going into the final year of their deal. Do anticipate that there will be a streaming service there, and do anticipate that something in the order of 6 Vancouver Canucks games will no longer be on cable, and that you'll have to be a subscriber to the streamer or one of these catch-all services that allow you to watch from a number of streaming companies. The Portland Trailblazers, just down the road here. So in August, they chose to leave their regional sports network partner, that's Root Sports, which you would be very familiar with if you were a Mariners fan. And they decided to go broadcast games locally over the air. The BCTV model, if you will.
Yeah. VTV.
Here's the problem. A lot of people in Portland, let's keep Portland weird, were either cord cutters or cord nevers, to quote Gary. So you know what the Blazers are doing? They are giving away 5,000 digital antennas to fans.
I thought it was going to be actual rabbit ears.
Well, they effectively are rabbit ears.
Yeah,
that's what a digital antenna is. It's the modern rabbit ears.
Yeah.
You go, you fill out a form on the Blazers website. They will ship you an antenna for free. You plug it into your television, and you pick up locally over-the-air television digitally. And these antennas can range from $10 to like $95. That's Canadian. So
I looked into this for my cabin, actually, because
can you believe this?
There are modern HD, and apparently the signal's beautiful. There are modern HD rabbit ears now, and because
I read a review, the New York Times did a review on which are the best. I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
And CRTC regulations mandate that a number of providers have to still send out this signal. They can't just be digital. So you still get, I don't know what the number is.
Wouldn't apply to the Trailblazers, of course, but up here in Canada, when I first read that, I'm like, are digital antennas what I think they are?
Yeah.
And yes, they are.
There's a guy 2 blocks away from me that has an antenna on his roof that is old school. It is 25 feet high, 15 feet long. Like, it looks like a comb, he's
picking up Sputnik.
Honestly, he might be watching, Russian television for all I know. Like, it is massive.
Houston, we have a problem. Some guy in North Van is listening to everything we say.
Yeah.
Anyways, I wanted to put that out there for you now. Portland, as a market with one team in the Big Four sports leagues, might be able to do things a little bit differently than other teams in other markets. Don't know, but of course,
I think that's fair.
The Trailblazers are far and away the biggest deal there. Timbers have done very, very well there, but no NFL, no Major League Baseball, no hockey, of course, NHL hockey. Okay. Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta. Join us Saturday at Greta Bar YVR, the first Canucks Army watch party of the season. Doors at 3 p.m., puck drop at 4. Get your tickets at nationgear.ca. There'll be some prizes. There'll be some trivia. We keep telling you about Greta. It's a great spot for all the games, home and away. Minutes from the arena and stadium, pregame, postgame. They got the great street food menu, the awesome arcade, weekly drink specials, 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. We'll see you there Saturday. Adnan Virk is going to join us here. Adnan, of course, a Canadian who has been sportscasting in the United States for a long time now and is part of the Monday Night Hockey on Prime package, as well as working for NHL Network and Major League Baseball Network. He is a noted cinephile, loves movies, and so it's impossible to talk to Adnan and not have some degree of conversation about all that. And Patrick Johnston as well from the Province and Post Media on all things Vancouver Canucks. Also, we know the NBA season is starting next week and invite you to check out Raptors Republic, new and part of the Nation Network here alongside us, Rinkwide Vancouver and Canucks conversation. So welcome to the family, to everyone over at Raptors Republic.
It's a big family these days.
Could be a long year for Raptors Republic.
Lots to talk about, though, in those seasons, as we well know.
Sure.
Yes.
Going to be playing a lottery simulator there, I would suspect. But we'll see. Don't want to prejudge the Raptors. Bet365 time, our bets of the day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. Where are you going?
I'm going to the Whitecaps in Real Salt Lake on Saturday, and this is just good value here. I'll do the homer bet here. I'll take the Whitecaps, but if I do combine that with both teams scoring, and I don't think I see a 1-0 win here. The Whitecaps defending has not been great of late, so I think they're going to concede like a 2-1 game, something like that. That's plus 400 for the Whitecaps versus just taking them as a winner, which would be plus 230. So I think they're winning, but with both teams on the board, so plus 400 on the Whitecaps.
I'm going homer here as well, because if not tonight with Barkov and Tkachuk out, then when for these Canucks? They got to get a win at some point, right? They won in Florida last year. You may remember a third period comeback that really ignited their season. They had the stinker in Philadelphia, third game of the season. Remember, they won the 2 games against Edmonton, home and away. They go into Philadelphia. They get embarrassed 2-0. Tocchet plays the who are we to think we've achieved anything. They wind up losing the next one in Tampa to fall to 2-2. Then they go into Florida on a Saturday. They're behind in the third period. They come back, win the hockey game, and then they were off to the races. So some good vibes in that rink, I'm thinking, for the Canucks. And I'm going to take them on the money line. Although the money line's down to minus 150, and it was 110 earlier. But I'm going to take them on the money line. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, whatever the sport, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS when opening that account. And Virk coming up next.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Some price from the historic Wall Center, and this next segment powered by Square. If you run a restaurant, you're probably too busy for this ad. You're thinking about how to get more orders flowing, new locations opening. You need to get more customers, have them coming back for more. So really, you're already thinking about Square, because Square Restaurant Tech helps more than 400,000 restaurants do all those things and more. So you're thinking about your restaurant, think bigger and think Square. Go to square.ca and see why Square is big in restaurants. Our next guest has gotten very big.
Yes, well, he's going to be on the road using Square, I'm sure, a lot.
Yeah.
With his new gig.
From Blake Price's production assistant years ago at TSN to now the NHL Network and Monday Night Hockey on Prime, it is our pleasure to welcome back to the program, Mr. Adnan Virk. How are you?
I'm great. Maddie Blake, always a pleasure. Listen, the fact that I was with Blake in the beaches not so long ago, borrowing shirts and ties, has clearly led me to this path. And we'll get to the sports in just a second. But I got to mention this because Blake remembers this from years ago, how much I loved Al Pacino. I can't put this down. Al Pacino's new memoir. It's called Sonny Boy.
Oh, wow.
It's life. Fellas, I went to the bookstore. I almost bought 10 copies. I was so excited. I was like, Al Pacino, and I need the world to know how much I love him. I'll just buy 20 books and just give people for gifts for Christmas. Hey, here's Al Pacino's new book. But it's
build a fort.
Yeah, I'm 115 pages in. Riveted. I can't believe he's one of the greatest actors left. I can't believe he made it out alive. From the South Bronx, grew up dirt poor. Dad left him when he was young. Mom had serious mental health issues, died when he was young. It's crazy. This guy made The Godfather, and he barely survived his teenage years. It's like a tale to Charles Dickens. But
give me a scent of the woman, quote. Come on.
If I
come on.
If I was the same man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place. That's all we do, Matt. And then taking a role keeper, said I'm just walking around like Pacino and scent of a woman.
You were a circus monkey for Dutchie and I. Yes, you did. We just constantly ask you for impressions.
Every part of me wants to ask for some Carlito's Way here.
Yeah, no, we
and
don't have enough time.
And fight him on one of the greatest actors of all time, but I'll settle for why Sonny Boy? He was Michael Corleone. He was not Sonny. Yeah. What's with the title?
Great question, Matt. First thing my brother said, his mom used to call him Sonny as a nickname. So then his buddies
okay.
One of his other nicknames, by the way, as a kid was Patchy, which struck me as a very hockey type name. His name was Al Pacino. We'll call you Patchy.
Yeah.
Max Pacioretty. Yeah, there you go.
Very hockey.
Very good.
Absolutely. Congratulations on the Amazon gig. Looking forward to watching you on Monday nights.
It's great, man. It's such a nice homecoming. We all know that I believe this was the expression Mike Day, our old boss, used at TSN. When Blake left to go back to Vancouver, he said, you can take the boy to Vancouver, but you can't take the Vancouver out of the boy. So it's apropos for me. You can take the boy to Canada, but you can't take the Canada out of the boy. This opportunity presented itself, oddly enough, at the Emmy Awards, which I never thought I'd be at either. But I was there for MLB Tonight. We won the Emmy for Outstanding Studio Show Daily. And afterwards, I see Amina Hussein, old friend from ESPN. Hey, congrats on the Emmy. Very cool. What are you up to? I'm at Amazon now, blah, blah, blah. And the next day, she sent a text going, hey, give me a call. I don't know about you two. Generally, I get these, and I find 100 other things rather than to do a call. Like, I'm like, okay, we saw each other. We caught up. It was polite. I'm like, what else could it be beyond the fact we just said hello? But I said, well, I probably should call her. She was a nice person. We were friends. And then she goes, hey, I might have a job for you. I go, what? Why didn't you tell me this last night? She goes, it was the wrong time. It was the Emmys. We wanted to enjoy ourselves. Now I might have work for you. It's a job hosting hockey games in Canada. And I said, Amina, I'm never like this. I swear to God, I'm innately humble, as all Canadians are. But I'm the perfect guy for this job. I said, you've got to get me this job. I don't care who the hell else. This is mine. I'm getting this one. I go, this is me. Okay. We go on the Zoom, and same thing, fellas. I was so brazen. I go, I don't know who you're talking to, but you already got the guy. Like, I'm taking the job, so you might as well just end this right now. I'm a good host. I know what I'm doing. I love hockey. I'm Canadian. This is great. So let's just get this signed up, and we'll figure this out.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the fact it worked, and I got to give credit to MLB Network, because the amount of people are like, wait, you're leaving? I said, no, come on, I'm never leaving. I love MLB Network. I love baseball. I love living in New Jersey. My wife's American. My kids are American. This is the perfect setup. You just fly to Canada. You get some coffee crisp. You get some French vanilla cappuccino. You breathe that fine Canadian air, and then you go back, earn that American money, and then go back again to Canada. Back and forth we go. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're delighted to have you as part of the NHL National Package here in Canada on a weekly basis, or I guess a semi-weekly basis. You and Andy are splitting the duties, so we'll see every second week or thereabouts here on Amazon Prime on Monday nights. And you've already had the big debut.
Yeah, it was
past
fun.
Monday.
Montreal, and I'm with Mark Messier and Blake Bolden. For you who don't know who Blake is, she was the first Black player in the National Women's Hockey League. She was a scout of the LA Kings. So it's a different foray for her. But then, of course, I'm with Moose, who I know has a different perception in Vancouver than he does in Edmonton or other areas of Canada. But it's Mark Messier, man. And at least he's done TV with ESPN, so he gets the general format. But cool to work with them. I got to shout out Mark Askin, who's a legendary Hockey Night in Canada producer. He's an old friend from the 1 year I worked at Leafs TV. So I worked at the Scores 6 years. I went to Leafs TV / Raptors TV, and then I got the job at ESPN. But Mark and I kept in touch. He's one of the biggest MLB Network fans in Canada. He's messaging me all the time whenever I'm on watching, and he really was an advocate to have me there. So he's a great producer. And then our crew is amazing. John Forsland, who's called hockey for 40 years. You guys know he's the voice of the Kraken, was previously the voice of the Hurricanes for years. He's done Turner. He's on ESPN. Jody Shelley, Thomas Hickey, a couple of NHL Network guys, so I know them well. They're part of our crew. So it was a lot of fun in Montreal. We had Gary Bettman on the first show, Jeff Molson. Thankfully, they did not pull the plug yet. And the biggest thing here, fellas, let's be honest. First and foremost, I'm a consumer. If I'm watching this, there better not be any lag issues, all right? When it comes to streaming, everyone told me it was a clean stream. There was no issues. So thank God.
It was awesome. The picture quality is amazing. And you actually see the difference between what you guys are doing. We had John Shannon on the other day explaining all this without getting to technical.
We're all over 50. Clean stream is necessary this time of our lives.
Now, I've got a question about Messier, and you're the perfect guy to answer it.
Sure.
Because, look, you were so right about Messier here in Vancouver. And for a lot of people still, all these years later, his name is Mud here. But one of the things that I have always said, Mark Messier is single-handedly the best hockey player actor I have ever come across, and one of the best former athlete actors I have ever seen. The Lay's potato chips commercial being perhaps
best former hockey player actor, really?
Well, give me a hockey player who is a better actor than Messier.
This is right up Adnan's alley.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's the perfect guest for this.
I was going to say, I think because you got to think of like the hockey movies we've had, and Slapshot, obviously, there's not like any hockey play. Cam Neely, of course, comes to mind.
He was not very good in that, though. He was very stiff. Very stiff. Gretzky is terrible.
Yeah. We all remember Gretzky on SNL.
Yeah. As far as Bobby Orr, maybe a few commercials here and there. Maurice Richard. No, like if you think of major name, Gordie Howe.
Has PK done any acting?
Oh, yeah.
PK could probably do some acting.
Mark Osborne's wife was an actor, but I don't think he was.
Dallas Aiken's wife is actor, but okay.
Hockey fans hate change.
Oh,
like we are very stuck in our ways.
Yeah.
Like both in terms of just the broadcast and what it looked like, and then finding the broadcast. What have you guys been hearing in terms of feedback? Because it's one thing to put it. Hey, I working on MLS Season Pass. I've heard this too. People, I can't find it. Like I know the pain here. Have you been feeling that pain?
Thankfully, it's been okay, but I'm sure you've been in that situation too, Blake, with MLS. It's like you feel like you should know everything, and you don't know very much at all. So people will ask you questions. You go, I'm not sure. Maybe defer to the other guy. Is there a PR person or you could ask? Like the first was, do I have to pay extra for Amazon Prime for the hockey if I already have Amazon Prime? And I'm like, I don't know. I think if you have Prime, you should be okay. How much is Amazon Prime to get? Again, I'm not sure. I'm not in Canada. I'm not particularly aware of these things. Just hopefully it's not too much. Hopefully the hockey is great. The one thing I laughed at out of the gate was, and again, Askin's a legendary producer, because what we're going to do is we're going to put a map up of Canada and show where all of us are from. And I said, okay. And at first it looks cool. Jody Shelley's from Nova Scotia. Thomas Hickey's from Calgary. Messier's from Prince Albert. I'm from really tiny Morven, Ontario, near Kingston. Andy Petrillo's from Maple, Ontario. But the one that was funny to me is John Forsland, who's the voice of the hockey, is from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
A very discerning eyes going to go, oh, great. So this prick American is the one calling our game? Really? So I said, I don't know if you can somehow just remove Forsland's name from the accent. Just put all the CanCon you can up there, and hopefully people don't notice it. But that was what Mark said to me, because normally I think if a Canadian was at home watching in Saskatoon, he'd go, Amazon's doing hockey? Oh, great. So these tech people are coming in, these Americans. But no, it was mainly Canadians doing it. It was a Canadian production. It was all CanCon. And like I said, the streaming wise, that really went well in that respect. And it seems like people were relatively happy. So it's good.
Hey, I remember having you on a number of years ago on the radio show in advance of the college football national championship game. I think it was Alabama, Georgia, and Adnan, Virk, and Jesse Palmer are the panel, two Canadians. It was extraordinary, given how specific that sport is to the U.S. Okay, I got to ask you about the Canucks. I'm sure you've done all your research and everything, and they're 0-1-2 here out of the start. What do you think of the Canucks this year, and how much would you be sweating winless through 3?
Well, it's interesting. I was looking at the Oilers. They seem to be more scrutinized because they're 0-3 out of the gate, and at least defending Stanley Cup champion finalists, although they didn't win against the Panthers, and they did get that victory against the Flyers the other day. So I don't read too much into hot starts, but it is interesting how Canadian teams have either been really good or really bad. So Oilers 0-3, Canucks 0-2-1, Flames 3-0, Jets 3-0. So I'm like, oh, this is just fascinating the way it's gone. For Vancouver, it's interesting. I still look back to that playoff run a year ago, and I still think that they get a little bit of rope because it was so remarkable what they're able to do with Archer Seelovs. Like when your number 3 goalie is able to take you to at least win a round and the semifinals, that people say, okay, we had good things, let's build off of it. So it's a long way of saying I think if for an early start, people are not going to be panicking yet. I think the Canucks are going to be a good team. I think that they just in general, being an NHL network the last few years, Batty, it's funny looking at Vancouver. It went from like, oh, underachievers. Why aren't they better? We had Bruce Boudreau with us. He still does stuff with NHL Network. So we've had some fun conversations. He's been very blunt about his challenges in ownership, the headbutting. But then, I love Bruce, but I'm like, Rick Tocchet seemed to figure things out. So I'm like, it's interesting how like a coaching change can come and certain voices can be heard. So I've had some people as bullish as saying the Canucks could make the cup if Thatcher Demko's healthy. And I've had other people saying they're a playoff team, but they're not going to be as strong as a season ago.
I'm curious to see what your perception has been so far from being around the NHL Network and other places on the reception of Quinn Hughes and JT Miller in terms of league-wide superstars, and particularly south of the border. They could be huge pieces for the Four Nations Cup as well. Did the Norris Trophy really help Hughes' stock, and will JT Miller's stock ever rise in the eyes of out-of-towners?
No, it's fascinating, Blake, because Quinn Hughes, yes, people talk about him and they go, okay, they put him up there with Cale Makar and they agree he's one of the top defensemen in the league. And you're right. When you win some hardware, it makes a big difference. It's one thing to be like an honor to be nominated, as they say at the Oscars, but you actually win it. People go, okay, that's a different story. But JT Miller, yeah, for some reason, he doesn't resonate. Like if I just talked to people at NHL Network, we started going through best players in the game. for some reason, it takes a while to get to his name. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe the style of play, maybe the fact he's in Vancouver, East Coast bias, whatever you want to say. JT Miller feels like, for me, one of those guys who will be perennially underrated unless something major happens. If they win a cup, he wins some hardware, etc. So yes to Hughes, but no to Miller. He's still underrated.
And Thatcher Demko, of course, if and when he can get back on the ice and 10 goal again, right? A big piece. Is anybody talking Four Nations Cup? What do you think the reception is going to be to that tournament?
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people, when they hear it, they go, wait, what are we doing here? I'm like, okay, I know they're taking a break in February. It's not the Olympics, but it's funny because you have to be of a certain age, as the three of us are, to remember how big these international tournaments were. Like, of course, we vividly remember 87 Canada Cup. We know what it was like to have Canada playing, in the Olympics that first time, how special Salt Lake was in 2002, et cetera. So I think with Four Nations, again, in America, people view Olympics as a big deal, but then after that, it kind of loses them. So when they go Four Nations, they go, it's not the Olympics, right? No, but it's an international tournament. Yeah, but it's not the Olympics. So
but I think we've adopted that too, Adnan. Since we've seen best on best in the Olympics, I'm not sure the in-season or the old preseason, as the Canada Cup was, tournament can hold the same gravitas. And we've discussed it many times on this show. That's because, an Olympic gold medal is one of the biggest prizes in global sport, right? You can go anywhere with an Olympic gold medal and people understand what it is, right? So pleased to see them getting back to the Olympics. And I must say, I am fascinated by the Four Nations face-off. We'll see if the public at large buys in. I will say this though, we've looked at the rosters. There have been very few times in my lifetime where I think you could say Canada is not the favorite in an international best on best tournament. That American team looks hellacious. Oh my God.
Matty, when was the last time that you said Canada goalie? How we looking? Right? I can't remember ever in my lifetime. Every year they go, oh no, we got Patrick Hall, we got Martin Brodeur, we got Carey Price. This year we're kind of like, I remember even a couple years ago, it was like, what, Carter Hart, is that our top goalie? Like, it's
great. I know.
It's changed.
No, we got our fingers crossed for Stuart Skinner and Connor Ingram.
Jordan Binnington, I read the other day. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And incidentally, Blake, have you noticed every time we talk to Adnan, there's going to be an Oscar reference. There's going to be an Emmy reference. Yeah. The moral of this story, still a great night,
Still
Adnan.
a great night.
Still a great night.
Nobody appreciated that more than you guys.
Oh my goodness.
For those unaware of the joke, so when Moonlight won Best Picture, I was there with my buddy Ben Lyons doing the live stream for Oscar.com. And after the whole kerfuffle happened, and I was like, oh my God, screaming, with jubilation and excitement, Moonlight won Best Picture. My friend Ben Lyons said, still a great night for the Academy, which I believe is a reference to Steve Harvey when he had his.
That's what you said.
Right. That was when Steve Harvey screwed up the Miss America. Philippines. No, it's not Philippines. Still a great night. Still a great night.
Oh my goodness.
We just screwed up the announcement of the biggest winner of the night, but it's still a great night.
And good on him. That's a great drop, which I didn't even catch the first time around.
No, I didn't. I thought he was just sort of trying to shine the rose for the Academy, but Adnan informed us, no, it was the Steve Harvey Miss Universe drop. I love how deep we get in the weeds on pop culture with you, Adnan. Hey, one more thing. Because I know all you guys are fixated on Yankees, Dodgers, or Mets, Yankees Subway Series. I am loving all the CanCon on the Guardians.
Yes.
We were talking about Abbotsford's Cade Smith the other day as the Dwayne Ward to Class A's Tom Hankey in that Guardians bullpen, and that they're playing 4 Canadians on a regular with Sobrowski, the lefty out of the bullpen from Edmonton. Is Canadian baseball history, right? Like, we have not seen that in the postseason.
They're the Oklahoma Thunder
of
baseball.
Thunder, very good play.
Yeah.
Before the playoffs began, I picked the Guardians to win it all. And people were like, oh my God, what a crazy pick. And somebody from Canadian baseball goes, I can think of 4 reasons why he's picking the Guardians.
Yeah, very good.
Sobrowski. By the way, Bo Naylor 0 for 14 so far, which is concerning. Cleveland catchers have done nothing offensively. And Sobrowski, but Cade Smith, you're right to mention him, Matty, second on the team in postseason innings. He's allowed 1 run in 8 innings. He struck out 14 of 27 batters. Besides Tanner Bybee, nobody's pitching more than him. And every time I hear his name, Cade Smith, I think they're saying Cade Smith. I'm expecting a Flyers game and someone to start saying, God bless America. I must be the only one doing that.
I think you probably are. Yeah, I think you probably are. Oh, my goodness.
You're a testament to God bless America.
Yes.
A star-spangled Canadian, Adnan Virk from NHL Network. from Monday Night Hockey on Prime and MLB Network. It's been a long time. Thank you for your time, my friend.
Don't be a stranger. We'll have you back. Thanks, man.
Of course, Matty Blake, anytime you guys want me. And I wish I was making the trip to Vancouver. Maybe I can somehow...
You make sure you're on one of the Vancouver trips
Andy,
next year,
we love Andy, but she might get sick that week. So it might be you. Yeah.
And by the way, go read a book, okay? Sonny Boy from Alpha. Hoopah!
It's happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day from Yellow Dog is the Retriever Golden Ale.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center. This segment brought to you by Ben Moss. Ben Moss, proudly Canadian owned, operated with a history dating back more than 100 years. 5 locations in BC, including Willowbrook in Langley and Coquitlam Center, committed to customer satisfaction. You can check out the large selection of Canadian mined diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, and mined diamonds available with payment plans to suit your need. For more information, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, shine bright.
You know who's a jewel in our crown?
Patrick Johnston of the Province and Post Media.
Yes, he is. Jewel in the rough, or is that insulting for Patrick Johnston?
No, jewel. Just leave it at jewel.
Okay.
Why can't I be a diamond?
Shine on. Shine on, you crazy diamond.
When you were buying the ring for Candace, did you need help, or did you know what you were getting?
Well, I was fortunate in that a sort of friend of a friend is an artist who makes rings.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Nice. So and she happened to have her studio in the corner. So I was and she'd done rings for some friends of mine. So I basically got in touch with her, and we did a little design.
Very nice.
Wow, look at you.
Lucky guy.
How about that? Designer Patrick Johnston joins us here on Sekeres and Price. So when should Canucks fans start panicking? If they lose tonight and go winless in 4, if they lose Saturday in Philly as well and go winless in 5, or if they lose the entirety of this trip, including Chicago next week? Well, how close is Canuck Nation's finger to the panic button here?
Well, I had someone point this out to me about the winless Edmonton Oilers, which is that I believe no team has ever won the Stanley Cup after starting the season 0-3. But then you sit back and you go, okay, well, but do we really believe the Edmonton Oilers are not a Stanley Cup contender despite their start to not great start? So, okay, so you zoom back. Okay, do starts matter? Yes, they do, because of course every point counts, and you're the Vancouver Canucks. And I think a lot about last week where they blew 2 games. They got points in each, but they blew 2 games. And then finally have an out-and-out loss. They're still winless. I think, yes, I do think if tonight looks bad, as poor as it did on Tuesday, I think it is time to start getting anxious. Yeah. I mean, obviously a win is massive because this is the theoretically, technically, however you want to put it, best team in the NHL because they're the defending champions, right?
Well, the defending champions without Barkov and Tkachuk tonight, like that would be a big part.
Yes, that could be
around this game.
Yes,
if
absolutely.
It fall to 0-2-2 or 0-1-3, but in this case, lost to a team minus Barkov and Tkachuk. That's a different animal than if this was the 18 skaters we saw in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year.
Yes. So a win is a win in the end, right? Mm-hmm. That's what matters. And I mean, this team needs a win. They need to show that they actually can play hockey because we saw them play pretty good hockey last year, and mostly have not done so far this year.
We were kicking this around yesterday. So I came from it, and Blake and I didn't really fight about this, but we were both seemingly messaging different things yesterday on the struggle. For me, it's 4 goals in the first period that you played this year. And it's 4 goals in the 8 periods since, including 2 overtimes. I have viewed it as more an offensive problem, particularly because their expected goals per 60 is still really good. It was 7th in the league after, even after the game, the loss in Tampa. He has fixated more on the bottom 4 defense, which, needless to say, has not been good because it's not just the third pair. Blake's 100% like Susie has not been good this year. Myers has had some difficult moments as well when he's played, and he effectively missed a full game. So
Yeah.
what do you see as the bigger?
And of course,
those
those guys
Schultz was horrible in night one as well. So team offense, team defense. What do you think is the bigger problem?
and the buildup begins from the back, of course.
right now.
I do think it's the offense. Defensively, like the first two games, like Rick Tucker wasn't wrong. They were not actually that terrible. The problem was that they didn't get any saves in the first one. And then in the second game, they didn't score any goals. And then they come to Tampa where it was just all around not good enough. So to me, the bigger problem is putting the puck in the net. Obviously, they ran so hot last year to open the year. To me, that's the contrast is easy. But I've been very skeptical on this very program about the defense core, right? Like they do have to get better there. Brannstrom is an interesting item to add to all this. And so, yes, both of you are correct. I don't think they played that badly defensively, but they need to be better on the blue line in general. And that's about construction, and that's not so much about actual performance.
Right. Like when I think about my frustration with the defense, it's not so much the preventing of shots on goal in the most direct sense. It is, okay, you've got the puck now in the defensive zone after a turnover, after a missed shot, after a save, what have you. Now, what do? That's where I look at them and go, wow, are they bad?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like flat-footed, panicked moves, just no skill to get that puck moving in the right direction, which, of course, in the trickle-down effect, affects the offense. So it's there rather than we've entered the zone, we're going to take a shot. They're defending okay. The goaltending's okay. But it's the second phases and the third phases that, to me, show how bad they are.
To me, it goes back to the variables they considered this summer, right? Like they decided to stick with Myers, and they decided the consequence would be that they would try to see if they could fix Vinny Desharnais, make him into a better player than he's been, which is a huge task. And if you don't do both of those, you could have signed probably a better just general. I mean, I don't know if Sean Walker would have come here, but Sean Walker is the kind of guy that I think would look a lot better in this lineup than both of those guys.
Well, I saw.
But here we are.
I saw this lineup, PJ, this defense core, and I thought, interesting to go into the game one of the playoffs with this lineup. I don't know how you get through 82 games with this lineup, though. You know, like we saw the playoffs looked pretty playoffy last year. Like it was pretty down and dirty. There wasn't a lot of free flowing play there. Like it was grindy sort of playoff hockey as we sort of grew up with. And I thought, okay, well, that blue line is commensurate with what we saw, but you can't get through 82 games with this group.
No, and listen, think about Nikita Zadorov. Would they have gotten through 82 games with Nikita Zadorov? I don't know, but he was great in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So to not be able to find some new version of him, like Derek Forbert, I think has had a decent start to the year, but he is not Nikita Zadorov, not that kind of player. No. Zadorov, far from a perfect player, but certainly something they don't currently have. And you can see what I think they would like to go get, whether it's a pure puck moving or a guy like him. I mean, Zadorov was pretty good with the puck. That's part of the other thing, was that he was able to make the play happen. Think about the rushes he led.
Yeah.
And so they are lacking that. And that comes back to the original question, was driving the offense, and that means getting the puck out. So it's sort of answering the question the same way in two different ways, if you will.
Do you know what's up with Forbert and Brannstrom? Thoughts on him dropping in?
Well, yeah. So I mean, I checked in with Ben Hankins and his agent. He said, no, it's a there's a personal matter in the family. It's you can figure out what that means. And he'll be back. Like he's himself is fine. Yeah. So Brannstrom presumably slots in, and they're looking at this as a moment to do that. Left shot defenseman who can move the puck. Talked to a couple of people who watched him in Ottawa, and listen, he came in with huge buzz, obviously being traded for Mark Stone, 15th round pick by Vegas. He never really had a partner, was part of his story. He never got really any stability there. He's smaller. He moved, to be effective, he needs to move the puck. He was pretty decent actually defensively. The numbers are pretty good in his favor. Didn't play for a terribly good team. It's just an interesting opportunity for the guy. The reason why Colorado was interested in him, because this is a guy that's worth throwing the dice at, and they're throwing the dart at, and obviously they found him not to be in their top 8. So now the Canucks are saying maybe he can be in our top 8. Like the guys, he was a full-time NHL defenseman for the last 2 years on a not very good team. And yeah, so I think he's he's a very interesting player. There's nothing to lose here. I find myself thinking a lot of past nothing to lose examples of defensemen that have played for the Canucks randomly over the years.
Hit me. Who you thinking?
I'm really
thinking.
Like, what level are we talking? Matt Bartkowski, Oscar Fantenberg?
Nothing like that. But random guys you never heard of from again. I think he's better than Justin Kurtz, for instance.
Yes,
Coulomb,
Philip Holm.
Yeah. Like there's a class of guys. And there's a Russian defenseman, like 20 years ago that Berkey brought in. Oh, what was his name? Anyway, he played like 3 games and then you just never heard from him again.
Yeah.
Like maybe Brannstrom ends up as in that category. I think he's better than all those guys.
Yes.
But let's not forget that there are plenty of cases in Canucks history where guys came in, played 1 game, 2 games because there was a sort of a roster need or there was a moment where you could take a look and then that was it. So,
well, the difference here is this is a pedigreed prospect, junior player, as opposed to those guys that they maybe spiked and had a great year in Europe. And so the team was like, maybe we should take a look. You wonder, and this is still a fairly young player at 25. Right. Like, when has it already clicked? Again, we didn't watch him night in, night out, but he played every night for the Sens for the last 2 seasons on a bad Senators team and managed to keep his plus minus above 0. I mean, to me, that's worth something.
Yeah. Like he has been as a sort of two-way players go. He was fine. Yeah. Didn't score a lot. He was supposed to be a bit of a puck mover, and there were players on that team who can score. So that does stand out a little bit. But you could do worse, and I think more ready for the NHL than Kirill Kudryavtsev or
that's right,
Rose or whatever.
He's a for now kind of guy, and for now he might be able to find a role on this team. Yeah. The market seems to be.
I find myself looking for this Russian defenseman.
I'm trying to find him too.
I can't find him just yet, but I will continue.
I found him, Alexei Tezikov.
Oh my God, that is a deep cut.
Wow. That is a really deep cut.
Not a single bell has been rung for me in my brain.
Picking the worst album from a band that's done 20 albums and then finding one of the deepest cuts from the worst album.
But just, a guy who'd he'd played for the Caps and he'd moved the puck in the AHL for Portland Pirates. But just, he was like, Virk, here's a guy. And you're like, no.
No, not going to happen, Brian. Good try, though. Good try.
This morning was a bad...
We've got to talk about PD.
Yeah, this morning was a bad morning for PD defenders, because there seemed to be a big social media push by several different accounts on the drought at even strength for Elias Pettersson, which is at 34 games for an even strength goal, which is... mind-blowing. I think he has one. Here's the other condemning stat. One since he signed the contract.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do with that information? Like, that's mind-blowing.
As I've said, what happened to the guy in January? Like that player in January who dominated that road trip, who looked like absolutely ready to go to the bank and cash every check there was. And
speechless.
Won't attack. Get the puck on his stick, and he won't attack the space. What happened?
He outlined a knee injury last year.
Yeah.
He outlined a continuation of that knee injury over the summer of this year that he had to train around. The head coach downplayed it as tendinitis and has consistently messaged, don't like the way he practices, don't like when he misses practices, wants him to push through. They're basically trying to toughen his hide to create, that Steve Yzerman, Patrice Bergeron lore of what you need to win the Stanley Cup.
Sure.
Is it possible that he's just pushing back? That it's a little bit of rebelliousness, like, oh yeah, you want to demean my injury? Like, well, no, it's actually bigger than you think, and I'll show you, because it continues to affect me, and I will continue to talk about it.
It's possible. He would have to talk to us and tell us that.
Yeah.
I think it comes back entirely between the ears. Which as I've said many times, it's a player who's never struggled before in his career. He had some struggles. Sure, there were some elements, perhaps some physical ailments, driving that last spring, and then he just couldn't find his way back. And now he's in this spot where I think it's just, he's 20, what is he, 24, what is he now? 25, 24, 25. It's big boy time, and can be hard. And I mean, all of us, I've said this many times, for all of us at some point at that stage, we had to sit back and go, okay, this is what life is. And, he's doing that, but he's doing that on a public stage. And that is something I don't envy. And I still stick with it, that this is a guy that's going to figure his way forward, because he's too talented not to. And he loves playing hockey, as far as I know, still does. He's loved playing hockey his entire life. This is what he wants to be. He's got to find his way. And I whatever little issues have been bothering him. I mean, certainly it was clear last year when we were discussing the idea of maybe he being injured. He wanted to make it very clear that injuries was not a problem. Which is why him bringing up the issue at the end of the season was odd. Because you're like, well, you never wanted to talk about this. You never wanted to make, hockey players are reluctant at the best of times to talk about injuries because they don't want to be perceived as making an excuse, let alone be actually making an excuse.
Yep.
And
that's what I think was the rebellious part. Like, everybody else here, Ronak, Hughes, and others are going to sit there and eat shit because they don't want to disclose an injury. No, I'm going to tell you why. And anyways.
The coach is
26 next month.
Yeah.
It'd be 26 next.
Yeah, the coach's skepticism sticks with me, and
for sure. And I can understand how it would stick with Elias, because I could understand if you felt like, I'm not supported here. My coach isn't supporting me on this.
And yet on all this,
he is willing to join the online trolls or whatnot, or at least not stamp that out on my behalf.
Right.
As opposed to, supporting me and saying, guys, look, he is doing his best. He is, got a lot of pain in his knee, or it's a first-time knee injury. It can be a scary thing for you. There are a lot of ways that Tocchet could have handled it that he didn't. He dismissed it. And I do wonder whether he just, if that was getting on the wrong side of Elias, and that whether these guys can ever be right.
Yeah. A lot of it, I mean, all this was last Saturday when he was on the ice ahead of everybody else, working with the coach, and then was literally still on the ice as we were leaving the rink after practice. He was on the ice for probably 2 hours last, just doing stuff, talking about stuff, figuring stuff out. So
he looked like he was having a whole lot more fun playing hockey. And I don't even mean during,
well, that's the other thing.
His 100-point
body
season.
Language, right?
Like, remember when the first 2 years that he was in this league?
Like, so much fun.
Smiles on the bench.
Yeah. He made a comment at the beginning of the season that he doesn't post anymore for whatever reason. And I do wonder whether the online stuff got to him.
It's possible,
about because he's got a unique fashion sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not stereotypical hockey fashion.
No.
As you know, no tall poppies in this sport.
Yeah. Well, I do think there's a lot in that. I really do, and
you think it's the fashion.
I think the difference, the noise, not even the playing noise, just the noise of the noise of his generation. To be perfectly honest, think about what Quinn Hughes said in the Amazon series of why he had all these books stacked up. He's like, I want to look at my phone less, right?
Yeah. Well, and by all means, I fully support that. Absolutely. If I think I would probably end up doing the same thing if I was in his position of just trying to be less connected and less attentive to what's happening out there, if you will. Yeah. But there doesn't seem to have been an effect yet. If that's been his measure to sort of mitigate. It doesn't seem like we've seen the improvement, if you will.
No, and I don't listen. I went, one of the very first interviews I did with him, I asked him, "What do you do in your downtime?" And do you read their books? And he just started laughing. And I said, "Okay, video games, yeah."
That's
but
something else you're not allowed to do in the NHL, right?
Well, I think it's just
posting about video games or fashion that isn't the three-piece tailored suits by our favorite tailor in Montreal, Toronto, or New York that we all buy our suits from.
No,
okay.
I think it is very much part. I do think a part of the story is him just having to find himself, finding his way into adulthood.
Yep.
And the generation things is generation basis. Yes. All right. Very good.
Till next week.
Take care, guys.
Keep shining.
It's happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day from Yellow Dog is the Retriever Golden Ale.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center. You can text us 778-402-9680. Email live at sekeresandprice.com. All of it to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips.
Going to be great. Really great.
Join us Saturday at Greta. First time we've done that this year. Saturday at Greta for our first Canucks Army watch party of the season at our home for the fans. Greta Bar YVR. Doors open at 3 p.m. Puck drop at 4. Tickets at nationgear.ca. We got prizes, trivia, and we'll be raising some money for the BC Mental Health Foundation. So looking forward to seeing everybody at Greta on Saturday. Shout out Vancouver Run Club, who have often joined us there en masse. Looking forward to reconnecting with all the friends we made at Greta last year, and particularly through the
Canucks have a chance to go above 500 on that day, right? Right?
Well,
right?
I guess, yeah.
Above NHL 500.
2-2 would be
2-1 and 2 now, yeah. If they're
right.
going to win that night.
Yeah, 2-1 and 2.
Yeah.
So weird. Lions Saturday, the season and home finale, and the salute to amateur football players. They've got a party on the plaza starting at 1 p.m. You may want to bring your galoshes. It doesn't look like a particularly great weekend. This is where you really love the fact that you're covered at BC Place. Otherwise, this one would have been tough in the pouring rain. Anyways, and who knows? Maybe the forecasts change.
No, this one's not changing.
This one's not changing.
No, this is a massive atmosphere.
They've opened the upper bowl, so they're expecting a big crowd. Amar Doman statement yesterday. We're in the tournament, and that's what matters. I want to thank our fans, number one, for supporting us in our rebuild the last couple of years. It's been fantastic. It's never a straight line to a championship. I think the coaches are doing whatever they can to get this team ready for the playoffs. We haven't heard a lot of spin from Amar Doman over his 3 years owning the Lions. Like, he's been a pretty straight shooter. There's some spin here. First of all, that he calls it the tournament, that's a Jerry Jones-ism. And it's actually a Bill Parcells-ism. Bill Parcells, when he was coach of the Cowboys, didn't want talk about playoffs. He thought that was a toxic word. So he's talked about getting to the tournament. Jerry Jones adopted that. We know Amar and Jerry are boys. And boy, it was a tough week for Jerry. Huh? Did you hear he threatened the jobs of Dallas radio hosts?
Yes,
He's had his birthday. They got destroyed by the Lions. You hear the senility setting in with Jerry Jones now. Anyways, he called it a rebuild over the last couple of years. I certainly didn't consider last year a rebuild. 2 years ago, I understand what he was getting at, that the Lions had been a downtrodden franchise and were getting back to the playoffs. I suppose you could look at last year as, the extension of the rebuild, but I thought they were a little more locked and loaded last year than they were a rebuilding team. And it's never a straight line to a championship. And well, if it's going to be for the BC Lions this year, that's right. It's going to be a step back.
It's the CFL.
They've hosted playoff games the last 2 years, and they will not be doing that this year. In fact, if they get another game beyond Saturday at BC Place, it'll be after a couple of terrific road victories in Winnipeg and Saskatchewan to get to the Grey Cup game.
There's no real rebuilding in the CFL. It's a 2-year turnaround.
Right.
Like this is not like the National Hockey League, not even like the National Football League. Although I would argue you can turn around your NFL team a lot quicker than you can turn around your NHL team.
Yeah, I would think so. I would consider Winnipeg a rebuild project because they lost a lot of games with Mike O'Shea over a long period of time early in his career, and they stuck with them, and continuity has worked for them. And of course, they've
depends on how bad you get, but like the Elks have had a tough time getting out of their funk.
Yeah.
But I mean, at what point do you just say that it's inept leadership, So I'm not really
bad
prepared.
Management. Yeah.
I'm not prepared to go. And as for Mark Dolman's comments, there is a moment where even the most shrewd, straight talking leader has to talk business. And at this point, it's better for his business to say, we can do this, even if in his heart of hearts, he maybe believes he can't.
Well, and the last sentence, I think the coaches are doing whatever they can to get this team ready for the plus. Interesting that he would name check coaches and not players. Typically you group them in when you are speaking from an ownership position, right?
Well, football is one of the few sports left where when you say you can't fire the whole team, is what we say in a lot of other sports. In football, you kind of can. The guaranteed money is not there, and you can fire the team in football.
And you are going to turn over a good number of players year to year anyway.
Yeah.
In the Canadian Football League. Sante Evans, Adrian Green not practicing. TJ Lee limited, so still concerns in the defensive backfield, although Patrice Rene, the Canadian, full practice. Javon Cotoy at slot back has been limited. Tyler Packer, the offensive lineman, has not practiced this week. We shall see. Whitecaps finale against Real Salt Lake. It's decision day in MLS. And as we know, the Whitecaps need a win if they're to avoid the wild card match against the Portland Timbers. Stuart Armstrong, the Scottish midfielder, did not dress, was unavailable due to injury last week, Blake, against LAFC.
Well,
they could really use him because, he was missing on top of all the international guys who were away. They could have really used him against LAFC. They could really use him this week as well at Real Salt Lake.
Their company line on that was he could have played, but he'd be playing at 40%, and then he'd be playing at 50% this week, as opposed to him playing at 80 to 100%.
If you're playing at 40%, you're not really playing.
Right. So it's a calf strain. I think he could have made it work, but their point was they would much rather have conditioned him to be an impactful player on decision day. And in the end, they were good enough to get points last weekend and just didn't, and for a variety of reasons. But we'll see. Haven't been able to get today's a big day of training. It's a massive day of training.
For sure.
Because all the national team guys, international team guys are back. They are on the pitch. We're going to see who has a little niggle here, a little knock there.
But niggles and knocks, you ain't got time to bleed now.
No, it's going to be pretty significant.
Is you play through that.
Well, yes and no, Matt. You want to say that, but they are in the playoffs. This isn't to make the playoffs. So, if benching a guy or limiting his minutes so that he can be 100% for the playoffs makes sense, I think you can make that argument.
I can hear your mouth there because we're talking about a Wednesday game, the wild card.
Yeah.
So you're playing Saturday, Wednesday.
Yeah, that's
a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And of course, right now they're in position to host this wild card match. That could change as well.
They gotta find a way. They have to find a way to get a road win. After the season they've had, if they get robbed of a home playoff day, because theoretically they get bumped all the way to 9th and then don't get to host anything and then lose. It'd be terrible, right? So they deserve better than that.
If that's the case and they bow out in the wild card round at Portland, Suddenly, I think you're talking about a much different tenor and a much different offseason for the Caps.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that ownership would be a little more patient with, Axel, I think, is here to stay. I would like to think that everyone would be a little more patient with Vanny, but then I think Vanny would be on a hot seat starting next year if that's the way it goes down. Don't like saying that. Really enjoy our chats with Vanny, but
the tenor changes though if they get a win. If they get a win on the road in RSL,
of course,
all of a sudden, there's a chance they finish 7th.
Yeah, especially if they're in a best of 3 for sure.
They it's a big game. So
the one thing I'll say is, it wasn't too long ago when we were talking about home pitch advantage and
top 4, totally.
Yeah, top 4.
No, I mean, honestly, it's the difference of 4 points. If they are 4 points better, that's still a possibility for them.
Playoff tickets going to be on sale shortly here. And as a listener, viewer of Sekeres and Price, you can get in on an exclusive pre-sale by texting 604, texting CAPS, CAPS, to 604-305-4530. For more info, visit whitecapsfc.com.
We're down to a small percentage chance that they don't host a playoff game. There's a much better chance that they do host a playoff game. So get your pre-sale sign up.
Yeah. Well, as we talked about, there's a world where if they win and Minnesota loses, then they're top 7. They have a home playoff match in the best of 3.
Yeah.
If they win and Minnesota ties, if they net 3+ goals, they would also leapfrog Minnesota out of the wild card round. And then basically, if Portland loses or draws and Vancouver manages to win or draw, that's also a home playoff game in the wild card round.
Portland is in Seattle. Seattle has lost 2 games at Lumen all season long.
That's a fortress again.
And Seattle has a chance to secure 3rd place in the conference with a result.
Quarterbacking. Pittsburgh head coach Mike Tomlin is considering Russell Wilson, the ex-Seahawk, as his starting quarterback for the Sunday night football showdown with the New York Jets, despite the fact that Justin Fields has led the Steelers to a 4-2 record. Now,
how could you possibly justify this?
Well, I cannot remember the last time a 25-year-old quarterback with a winning record was being sat down for a 35-year-old quarterback coming off a horrible season and an injury. And Fields, to his credit, has very much been the team guy there. He said, look, if I'd played better in these 6 games, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He's got a 300-yard passing game, albeit it came in a loss. He hasn't really shown the big play explosiveness with his legs that we saw in Chicago, although he does have a bunch of rushing touchdowns in the last few weeks. His legs have been a part of the equation there with Najee Harris, the terrific tailback Pittsburgh has. If Tomlin is looking at it like, look, Fields still needs more time to develop, and he's not the guy who can take us on a playoff run this year, whereas Russell, surrounded by the right elements because he's the veteran, because he's done it before, is more likely to do that.
They're 5th last in passing yards per game.
Yeah. And Justin Fields, and I watched him very closely as a Bears fan. He is not a sit in the pocket, go through your progression of reads and throw the ball accurately downfield. That's just not him. And frankly, I'm not sure that will ever be him.
That's not Russell Wilson either.
Well, that was Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
that was Russell Wilson. A few did it better than Russell Wilson at one point. But it's an interesting move if it happens, Blake, because, and boy, Tomlin's a long-standing head coach. 20 years there. You have the capacity to unsettle your locker room with this, because it's such a contentious, potentially fractious decision that you risk splitting your room into Team Russell and Team Justin. And of course, we all know how those Seahawks felt about Russell Wilson. Has he won guys over there?
And we're also,
because if he's only won the head coach or a few of the coaches over, Pittsburgh, this could go awfully wrong.
We're also like 3-4 years removed from the last decent Russell Wilson season.
We are.
Like,
now,
you're not putting
quarterback
the genie back in the
well,
bottle.
Quarterback a function of the people around him was not surrounded by good people in Denver. Not on the coaching staff, not on the offensive line or receivers or running back. Hey,
who's the top passing team in the NFL right now? 3, 2, 1, go.
Is it Dallas?
The Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, right. Gino's thrown for a bunch of yards.
Yes.
That's right. Hey, more quarterbacking news. You've taken an interest in Curtis Rourke, the younger brother of Nathan Rourke, who transferred from Ohio University, where Nathan played as well, to Indiana this year. He is getting Heisman buzz after leading the Hoosiers to a 6-0 undefeated record. He is the 13th choice to win the prestigious award given in college football's best player. At Bet365, he's plus 500. ESPN analyst Tom Luganbill yesterday on their college football live show picked him as the player to watch in the second half in the entirety of NCAA football. 130 teams there. They play 5-1 Nebraska, Blake, in a nationally televised game on Saturday. So Canadian quarterbacking, I know it hasn't gone great for Nathan Rourke this year, or really for Trey Ford in Edmonton, but you got another one coming in the younger Rourke. And then how about this? Young man's name is Blake Hebert.
Like
he
him already.
Moved from Maple Ridge, British Columbia to Massachusetts when he was 14 years old to play at U.S. high school football. He's now at the Brunswick School in Connecticut. And this week, a nationally recruited Canadian quarterback from our backyard flipped his commitment. He had verbally committed to Clemson. He now says he's going to Notre Dame, but he has had all these top schools after him. Looking forward to seeing how Blake Hebert matriculates in his career. Poll question results from Wednesday. We asked you, DeBrusk, Miller, Besser, Höglander, Pettersson, Garland. Thumbs up or thumbs down on that top 6 ordering? Nearly 2,000 votes. People said yes.
Yeah.
89% of you said yes. When we fashioned this poll, I didn't for a second think 90% would agree with it. I figured you'd have a fair bit of quibbling there.
Well, and even the ones that did quibble, it was just moving around those 6 players for the most part. For the most part, people were all in on the decorated, pedigreed top 6 playing together.
Your best goal scoring wingers with your 2 best centermen. Patty, nothing wrong with that. Rosen, and we saw a lot of this. Time for Pettersson to watch a game. I don't know about that. As this guy always says, that's a cut your nose off despite your face move, right? Are your chances better with Elias Pettersson or Nils Oman in the lineup? Come on. Sawasanux, like the handle here. I'd prefer PD to get sheltered minutes down the lineup. Well, again, so are you playing Suter or are you playing Bluger in the 2-hole, in the 2C? Yeah. And then East Van Nucks fans, these are the only top 6 players on the team, realistically.
I mean, they are safely top 6 players. I think they were hoping that somebody would step up, and the season is young. See, the season's not young when it comes to evaluation of Elias Pettersson. We know him well. Season is young when it comes to the evaluation of Danton Heinen as a Vancouver Canuck. Kiefer Sherwood, what he can bring to the table. Daniel Sprong, like those are players that we haven't seen in this milieu. We haven't seen in this system. Those guys get longer leashes to figure themselves out. Guys that have been here for years, who played for Talkett now for over a season, we can extrapolate further back just a little bit. So those guys get a longer leash.
Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. I said the Caps have clinched a home playoff game. They have not. They could still be the 9th seed and have to play at Portland, as we just discussed. Anything to self-report?
Nothing that I saw, no.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you connecting and spending some time with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And of course, support the community sponsors you hear us telling you about. Keep it local.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.